Print bigger, print better, with Titanic prints. Hello and welcome to Titanic Prints. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. Today we're going to be going over build plate adhesion types. This is something that, especially if you are starting out, is very important to understand in order to ensure that you can get a good print every single time. Do you use a skirt? Do you use a raft? Do you use a brim? Do you use none at all? And the different reasons why you'd use them. So let's go over the different types. There are skirt, brim, raft, and none. So what are these? A skirt is simply several lines around your model. I'm going to go ahead and slice this and show you. Now as you can see with a skirt, it's just going to print, in my case, 3 lines around all of the models. Not each one individually, but all of the models itself. And the reason the printer is going to do this is to clear the nozzle and get it ready to actually print the models that you would like to print. The other option that you have is a brim. Now, slightly different from the skirt, the brim is actually going to print multiple layers around each individual model. Now, what this does is not only does it prime the nozzle, but more importantly, it gives this small footprint a much larger footprint to stick to the bed. This is going to ensure that your model sticks to the bed better. Now, we're going to go into each of these a little bit more detail here shortly as to which is best for you. And the third option, besides none of course, is the raft. Now let's take a peek at the raft. Now, unlike the brim, the raft is going to be similar, but it's going to be much thicker and stick to the build plate a little bit differently. Again, we're going to go over why someone would use this here in a moment, but that's just to go over the 3 main different types of build plate adhesions. Again, you've got your skirt, your brim, and your raft. Now let's look at use cases. When would you use each one of these? Typically speaking, the skirt is a very good go-to option. When I'm looking at things with skirts, I'm looking for something that is short and flat. So good contenders for a skirt would be this base, this movement tray, and this floor. What I don't like to use with skirts are things that are narrow and tall, such as this wall and such as this pillar. Think short and wide, where's a skirt? Tall and skinny, we'll go with a brim or a raft, and we'll come back to that later. So dragging these off to the side, because we're just going to talk about these particular models. The benefits of using a skirt rather than a brim or a raft is that, again, when we slice this, you can see that the skirt, again, just has those 3 lines. It's just going to clean up the nozzle, make sure that the nozzle is fully primed and ready to start printing. And another thing that the skirt is nice for is that if you are like me and you always kind of meticulously watch that first layer to make sure that everything's good, having a nice clean skirt around the entire print area lets you know that your bed is properly leveled and that you should not have any issues. If you go to print and you notice that over here the skirt isn't sticking very well, and over here there's no skirt at all because the nozzle is too close, it's a good indication that your bed is out of level and that it's probably a good time to re-level that bed. Now, another big advantage of the skirt is that for these short, wide models, as soon as the printing is finished, they simply are removed from the bed and they are ready to go. There's no additional post-processing necessary. There's no rafts to remove, there's no brims to remove, there's nothing to scrape. You can pull these out and they are ready to go as is, which saves a lot of time later. So now let's talk about the brim. When would a brim be best used? When it comes to brims, I tend to like to use a brim for a very tall and skinny model. If I pull this wall section over, as well as this pillar section, you can see that if I look at the bottom, if I just were to do a skirt like we talked about, it's only going to have this teeny tiny bit to actually adhere to the bed. And any amount of the extruder head knocking this could easily knock this over, causing a failure. Now, a brim is also nice if your print bed seems to have a little bit of issues with adhesion. If you tend to print with a skirt and you notice that your bases here are maybe starting to peel up a little bit and you're not getting a very clean print, this is another good time to use a brim, as it's going to really make sure that it sticks and adheres to the bed. So if I slice this so you can see what a brim looks like, I'll show you exactly what I mean. Alright, as we can now see, we have the brim. Now the brim again is going to give much more surface area, especially looking at this pillar. We now have gone from just this little bit of yellow that was making contact with the plate to all of this blue. We've made that much more stable, much stickier to the build plate. Likewise with this base here, this 25mm base, we have much more surface area adhering to the plate. So what are some of the downfalls of using a brim? Well, as I mentioned before, you've got all of this extra material to really ensure that it adheres to the build plate. However, when it's time to remove this from the build plate, you're also going to have to remove all of this extra material. Sometimes it is removed very easily. You can simply peel it away with your hands. Other times, your hands may remove the majority of it, but there's just a thin layer that still needs to be removed with the back of an X-Acto knife, or even sometimes an X-Acto blade. Where this is really an issue is, for example, take this pillar. This particular model has these little gaps here. That is where this wall slots into this pillar. When printing with a brim, all of this blue material needs to be removed perfectly, both on the wall and the pillar section. If even a little bit of this is left and it does not get cleaned out exactly so, putting these two models together is going to be a serious pain. Oftentimes I'll have to use a hammer, or I'll take an X-Acto knife and have to physically dig all of this material out, which if it's only one pillar, one wall, sure, it's not that bad. But if you are looking to print, say, an entire city using these terrain models, that is going to significantly add to the amount of time that you could be doing painting or otherwise. As far as the third option, a raft, that's typically used if you're going down a river. I personally do not use rafts. I've never used a raft. I tend to be able to do everything with brims or skirts. If you are somebody who does use a raft and you prefer a raft over a brim or a skirt, please let me know how you use it in the comments. I've never come to like them, but if you have a use case for them that you would like me to try, or maybe some advice that I can look at, I'd be more than happy to give that a shot. However, in my experience, skirts are great, brims are great, rafts are traveling down rivers. If you'd like to see any other use cases or any other topics surrounding build plate adhesion, simply let me know in the comments below. If you have any other video topics you would like to cover, also please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you've not already subscribed, please feel free to do so, and also be sure to ring that notification bell. If you learned anything today, please like the video, as each like equals one sticky brim.